Hello, hello, and welcome back to Rewilded Wellness. Thanks for joining me. I'm your host, Lydia Joy. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk all about spring renewal as we are entering this beautiful seasonal transition. Oh my goodness, we made it. And as you know, and maybe probably feel the same, there's something magical about this time of year. The days are getting longer, at least the light. Um, we're starting to see all those tiny green shoots just like pushing through the soil. It's so exciting. I get so happy when I see them. I don't know if you guys garden or forage, but I've been going out and checking on my plants, and my little garlic shoots are just growing, and my herbs are starting to offer me some fresh leaves again. And I got some elderberry starts going, and they're starting to bud. um um the wild plants are coming out too. I've been noticing the nettles start to just like pick up and really push through, and the garlic mustard and other things as well. And there's just this like really palpable energy of new beginnings in the air. And this is literally nature's new year. So it is a perfect time to be really thinking about renewal in our own lives and wellness journeys. And today I want to talk about how we can harness this seasonal energy so we can, reset our approach to our health to match the season, right? But more so in a way that actually works long term. And I want to share why so many of us struggle with our wellness goals and how to build a proper foundation for, a more vital health, and share some exciting new ways I'm supporting people through this process. So let's talk about nature's new beginning. I want to connect us to what's happening in the natural world right now, as this is like the heart of my work, right? So we have the spring equinox, which is on March 20th this year. And this actually marks that perfect balance point where day and night are equal before the light begins to overtake the darkness. And our ancestors were deeply attuned to this transition. It wasn't just a date on the calendar, right? It was, kind of like we celebrated St. Patty's Day yesterday. It's almost become like we just do it because it's on the calendar, right? But it was more of a critical time ancestrally for really tuning into nature, right? And then planting seeds, cleansing their homes and bodies, setting intentions for the growing season ahead. And before our industrial age really disconnected us from these rhythms, we call this nature divorcement. Thank you, Arthur Haynes. People would gather for, spring festivals. They would be preparing the soil for their crops, and not the way that, big ag does, and all these big farms do, but much more intentionally, much more optimally, right? And we would also be honoring this time of the year as a true beginning. And I believe they understood something we often forgot. Our bodies are part of this natural cycle too, right? We forget this because we live in the, 24/7 lights on, 365, you know, get up and go to work, this whole paradigm, right? So we have this energy of new beginnings right now. And that's what this season carries, this distinctive energy, right? Where we can experience more enthusiasm, more initiation, and fresh starts. So it's a more natural time to, if you were trying to do New Year's resolutions or whatever, which, you know, that's based on the modern calendar, oftentimes it's more of like a time to just rest and restore and envision. But like now is the time to take that action, right? Now is the time to push forward. These are the qualities of spring, right? It's vibrant, it's energetic, and sometimes it feels impulsive, right? Like all of a sudden, like seemingly out of nowhere, boom, you've got everything in bloom, right? There's this rush to bloom and grow. And I think there's a beautiful duality here that we need to understand. On one hand, there's that powerful impulse to act, right? To make changes, to burst forward with new ideas. But when that energy isn't grounded, or balanced, or countered, it can lead us to chase quick fixes and immediate results. And oftentimes, people do this around their health, right? We can see it in the marketing. The marketing capitalizes on this, y'all. And honestly, I just don't think usually it leads to lasting change, these attempts, right? So to me, the higher expression of this springtime energy isn't just about action. It's about courageous new beginnings coupled with the wisdom to actually nurture what we start. And so why we get stuck in our health, this brings me to something I see constantly in my practice, a pattern that prevents so many people from truly thriving. I want to call it like the modern trap of learned helplessness when it comes to our health, right? Like collectively, particularly here in the West in the United States, we've been conditioned to believe that health is, I don't know, it's complicated, that we need an expert for literally every aspect of it. Like, because you literally can find a practitioner about every part of your body. Right? Or that somehow our bodies are these mysterious entities that we can't possibly understand. And because of it, the infrastructure has been set up where we outsource our wellness, and even our decisions, right? And oftentimes that leads to like, I don't know, maybe this temptation to wait for someone else to fix us, right? I have had a conversation with someone who talking about like the modern health insurance paradigm, and I was like, people are just like waiting around for someone else to tell them how to fix their problems, right? Like, these kinds of conversations that I'm having all the time, right? I'm sure you've been a part of those. Um, so okay, so then when we do try to take control, a lot of times what happens is there's this like approach of a rushing, right? Like when it's finally like the realization is like, oh man, I got to take my health into my own hands, right? Like there's this rushed, immediate, like I want immediacy, I want perfection, I want overnight healing. Um, this kind of energetic comes out a lot. And so, a lot of times what people might do is jump from one program to another, or go answer seeking around practitioner to practitioner to practitioner, never really giving their bodies the time to truly rebuild from the foundation up. And I get it. This is no judgment. This is just what I'm observing. I think we all can see ourselves in this somewhere at some point, right? It probably sounds familiar, right? I just see this cycle playing out everywhere. And I'm at the point where it's like starting to really break my heart because I know how much better it can be when we can approach wellness differently. So I think we need this, like, we really need to relearn wellness from the ground up. So what if, I'm suggesting this, what if we all embraced a beginner's mind this season, right? What if we approached our health like we're learning something for the first time? There's another thing I see because of the information age. People can research ad nauseum to the ends of eternity. It's like going to the buffet and filling your plate. It's like we're in this information overload, constipated with it and not assimilating it, right? So what I want us to get out of that, right? Like it's very easy to do. It's so easy for any of us to do. But what if we hit the pause on some of the information uh, accumulation and got really curious and more patient and more open and actually kind of, sat with some of this. And I think the big piece is like the trying to obtain knowledge versus what we're doing with the knowledge. It always has to be assimilated and integrated. And a lot of times what I'm observing is this skipping over of fundamental things. They just don't seem like sexy enough or that people are going to get results. But I believe many of us need to relearn some very fundamental things about how our bodies work. And one of the most critical areas is definitely our mineral foundation. Like, even if we just think about salt and water, for example, if we stopped there today, we all could spend plenty of time deeply beginning again in that area, quite frankly. But minerals, we've talked about this, they're the building blocks, right? They are your building blocks. They govern your hydration, your nervous system function, your hormone balance, your energy production, everything. Yet most people have no idea about how to properly support this, right? They don't understand it. It's too out there, ethereal, complex. And so we're trying to build health, on a shaky foundation. And then we're all wondering why we don't feel better despite all our efforts. And this is where we need to learn to, I guess, kind of temper the impulsivity to rush and transform overnight. And guys, spring can make us feel even more impulsive because it's just, especially when we enter Aries season. Aries is like that initiative, charge, go, act first, think later. I know this very well because that is where my moon is. So it's probably why I ad nauseum talk about this. Let's not be in the quick fix mindset anymore. Because I've learned this myself, right? And it's just the reality, that's not how we're going to heal. There's so much to it. It's really all about patience, patiently rebuilding the systems that allow your body to thrive. So there is a better way forward, in a way, so that we can work in a way with a seasonal energy that supports our healing journeys, right? So first things first, we all have to be checking in with ourselves, reclaiming responsibility for our own health. Not in an overwhelming, like, you're on your own kind of way. You know what I mean? Like, every man for himself. Like, that's rough, right? I mean, it's kind of feels that way sometimes. But more so in like this understanding of like, you actually have more capacity than you realize. Um, and that's where I want us to all kind of relearn. We really do. And then we need to understand that creating new patterns in our biochemistry and our brain requires a lot more support in the beginning than we might think. Just like a seedling needs extra protection and care before it can become a sturdy, strong plant. We also need structured support. We need additional support. We need protection. We need the right things, right? Like, so we need that to establish these new ways of being. And then third, we need to focus on building a proper foundation first. The basics. Just like minerals, mineral restoration, mineral remineralization, mineral balance, whatever you want to call it, like having deep mineral reserves. This is not like some boring prerequisite just because you hear it being told to you, maybe ad nauseum, depending on the health circles you're hanging out in. It's not boring, and it's not like a prerequisite to like the deeper work or the real work. Honestly, they are the real work. When we get these foundations right, when we have a solid base and we establish, safety within our bodies, everything else becomes easier. So I want to take a few minutes to help us really understand the minerals again. Because when I talk about mineral foundations, I'm not just throwing around a nice little concept. I'm talking about this like literal biochemical bedrock, right? If we think about the rock and we think about the water that would run through the rock, like it's incredibly dependent on that process to get the minerals in the water in the first place, right? So it's a bedrock for our human body as well. Everything else in your body depends on this. So I want to talk briefly. I'm going to call it the mineral orchestra. I'm not going to go too deep in this because I've covered this a lot. But I like this analogy. I don't know where I heard it first ages ago. But I think of minerals as like the musicians in an orchestra. Each one has a specific role, but they also work together in precise relationships. And so, they've got to follow each other. They've got to be in tune with each other. They've got to hear each other. They've got to meet each other. So like we often hear like when one mineral gets too high or too low, it affects all the others, right? So there really is a beautiful synergy, dance, symphony, we could say. That is what we're aiming to restore. So we have this, like, think about how long it takes an orchestra to intimately know how to play well together. I've never been in an orchestra, but my son has. And the amount of practice and the amount of, repetition and the amount of, like trusting each other and your leader and so on and so forth, right? You get me, right? So super quick, let's highlight a few things, a few minerals, in light of what I'm trying to share and how I'm trying to frame this, right? Obviously we have to start with magnesium, right? Like the biggie we all have heard about plenty. I'm gonna call this like the peace mineral. I've always said like it's hashtag Zen. Um, but it's like the peace mineral because it's essential for calming your nervous system, right? So as we enter spring, we should naturally become more active. We're gonna want to become more active because of the light, and we'll want to be more outside. But it's also gonna ignite us to be more active in general, right? So, spring, we're talking airy season. It's a yang energy, a fire energy, a more masculine energy, where we tend to be more like we were going to output more, right? We're going to be more driven. And so we have to think about this like, okay, well, maybe in light of that, our mineral demands will be different, right? We may use them up too quickly, depending on how we are already, right? Like where we're at now. So your mineral needs could increase in this season from what they might have been in the winter, depending on a lot of factors. But typically winter would be a little more sedentary, a little more reserved. So what's crucial to understand is that mineral fluctuations aren't just about like what we lack dietarily, although that is a big piece. They're profoundly influenced by our stress response, right? So when our nervous system, like if we start to output more and we don't have that safety built into our bodies, the stress can ramp up, right? Excuse me, the stress response can ramp up if we start suddenly taking on too much and just like our physiology can't match it, right? And we might just like use up our minerals a lot faster. Okay. Well, we do. Like when your body is in a more driven state, especially if you don't have good stability within your system, you are going to use up minerals much more quickly. So maybe you're somebody who's like taking mineral supplements. Maybe you're taking magnesium supplement. Hopefully you learned through my magnesium guide on how to do this, from a water and food first place. But um, if your body is in like a more protected mode, right? Like because you don't have the reserve and now suddenly you're increasing the demand on yourself. Taking a supplement is like, I don't know, it's more of like essentially pouring water into a bucket with holes, right? Like this is why I created that guide, by the way, the Magic of Magnesium guide a while back, because I really saw this more holistically and I wanted us to take an approach that is far more big picture over just like, here, take magnesium pills. We need magnesium. Magnesium's good for this, blah, 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 right? Same is true with potassium. This is your cellular hydration mineral, if you will, and it's really crucial for energy production. And again, as our activity increases, particularly in the spring, potassium becomes even more vital. It also does because the plants become more available. And that is where we're going to primarily get, magnesium and potassium are going to come into our diet through the plants. One thing Another thing that I also, and I talked about this, I think, in like an episode a while back about like the carnivore diet. One thing I see is like when we enter a new season, especially spring, there's all these people trying to do all these new, like, I don't know, things, right? Like in this, fire driven manner, right? So whether it's like, oh, let's do, hot yoga and let's do all these saunas and let's do restrictive diets, elimination diets, or let me up my intensity of my exercise. We may be like driven to like tackle this with like this intensity, but this is like what one of the biggest losses will be your potassium, right? Because, you know, especially like if you're sweating a lot and you're not replacing, especially if you're taking entire food groups out like plants, especially if you're driving yourself up into fight or flight with intense exercise and your body can't handle that, right? Um, so potassium, the symptoms are going to be subtle at first. The very first thing I notice will be fatigue, some level of fatigue, maybe that mid-afternoon slump people get. Maybe a little brain fog, like you're in the mid-afternoon particularly, but not only then. You might notice, gosh, I just don't have it. And then you think you want like a coffee or a tea or an energy drink, right? Even all these like packet drink thingies people are buying, like I can't believe how many there are, like powdered packets, energy like packets, like even like wrapped in like the health term, but it's really just like poor forms of like vitamins and all this stuff. And the fact that people think they need that, especially a couple times a day to get through the day, is a bit disturbing to me. But that is where I think about potassium. People are usually not getting anywhere near enough. And another symptom would be like blood sugar instability. So that's another factor of like that fatigue. Oh my word. I combined fatigue and brain fog together, you guys. That fatigue and brain fog, you're going to be having some kind of blood sugar imbalances as well. And the problem is if we don't figure this out and like replete the foods rich in potassium and the drinks rich in potassium more naturally, please, this can progress, right? We can end up having really serious issues. One being like heart palpitations, which can be incredibly scary. A lot of people tell me this and it's very like disconcerting when your heart starts to rhythm weird and you're like, it scares you, right? And then chronic fatigue is another one. So your body's spring cleaning processes really require adequate potassium to function properly, more so than the winter. The winter we were in the more of the salt, phase. Now we really, really need to pay very close attention to all this plant material and proper hydration to get adequate potassium in a, wrapped in a mineral orchestra and other nutrient orchestra, right? So that we're getting all the moving pieces together. And then sodium, right? Like I hope you guys know this by now that we were taught to be afraid of it, but it was just an incomplete story, right? We need sodium. We need it in the form of salt plus all these other minerals, right? Not just like isolated sodium, which was done for so long in our food supply, which was processed food and table salt. But we need it. It's like absolutely essential for your adrenals, your kidneys, stress resilience. If you're somebody who feels a little overwhelmed right now by all the energy of spring coming in, all the shifts, the cleaning, the planning, the socializing that comes with this season, you might be dealing with suboptimal sodium levels, which correlate with the function of your nervous system, your adrenals, your kidneys. It's not just about levels, by the way. It's about like testing your levels per se. Like maybe you're familiar with blood, maybe you're familiar with HMA. It's really about how you are being, how you are conducting your life, who you are. That's impacting how your biochemistry affects your usage of these minerals, particularly sodium here. And then how that also affects all systemic functions, right? So again, that whole orchestra, concert of minerals has to be in tune with each other. So also, really quick, when I say sodium, you guys know I mean like sea salt, right? We're not doing the processed stuff anymore. We are totally avoiding that. If you occasionally have it, shouldn't be a big deal. But in the grand scope, from here on out, we're doing mineral-rich sea salt. We're diversifying our sea salts because they all have different profiles. So just play around, have some fun. But the natural salts are going to have a completely different effect on your body than the table salt and sodium in processed foods. All right. Now, I believe safety is the foundation of your foundation, right? I believe that before anything, safety is the first thing, like creating space and feeling safe. And I think that this is what's profoundly missing in most discussions about, we can say, mineral balancing or, mineral restoration or more deeply healing your biochemistry, right? Your body cannot heal truly when you are in like protection mode, right? So just like an infant needs safety from their mother to develop properly, your body requires a sense of safety to allocate the resources it's taking in towards healing rather than survival. Okay, so this is why I brought up the piece about like learned helplessness earlier. When we've been conditioned to believe we have no control over our health, our nervous system remains in a constant state of that threat. Like it's like there's a threat going on, right? Like, so it's like this subtle alarm is going off in our body. And it literally prevents healing at like more deeply at a biochemical level. So building a mineral foundation isn't just about which minerals do I need and which supplements should I take and how much of this mineral do I need for blah, 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 right? Like that's what I think we've been doing for so long. And I've been trying to redirect us because it's so much more beautiful than that. It's about understanding how you live your life. It's about creating an environment where your body can actually utilize those minerals effectively. All right, so now we want to talk about the voltage connection because this is where the nature piece comes in. So I've talked about this before in a past episode. I don't remember the name of it, but there's one on voltage. It was from the summer of 2022, I believe. And this is a critical concept we need to understand. I think a lot more people are talking about this. The body is an electrical system, right? Like if you're being targeted to by all these um, health things, you're probably seeing it. It's out there like a lot more now. People are finally like making all these connections, right? So our bodies are electrical systems, right? They require that proper charge to function. So in the spring, we're going to naturally have access to more voltage from nature, more sunlight, more grounding opportunities, more fresh foods. Hopefully you're getting more things locally now, local produce, local farms who raise animals, eggs, all these things, all these beautiful things. Maybe you're gardening yourself and you're starting to pick your herbs like I am, right? But if we are not deliberately receiving this natural voltage and we are simultaneously draining our reserves through stress, artificial light, sitting inside all day, looking at screens, not getting enough light, true natural light, and having this ongoing disconnection from nature, our literal voltage source, we're creating a deficit. And so, simply taking mineral supplements, thinking you're, fixing this whole mineral piece for yourself, it won't work to deeply restore you. Your body needs the electrical capacity to properly transport and utilize those minerals at the cellular level. So, we want to be co-creating with our body. So, to truly build a mineral foundation, we got to become co-creators with our bodies, right? Minerals are going to start to turn our cellular functions back on But we also, as we do this, we get grounded, we get well sunned, we get well hydrated, we get in the minerals in our food and water again. We also need to be willing to realign our patterning, our conditioning, the things in life that we once did, right? So we have to learn to do this, right? So this way, it makes our whole environment more conducive to renewal. So I've talked about this a lot in my 7 pillars and all the fundamentals in past episodes. I don't need to go over it again here. This means, though, simply said, we're creating more rhythms in our life that honor rest and recovery. We are no longer just in constant output mode. I don't care if society still operates that way. When we're healing, we are learning new ways of being, and we must adapt and change and figure out new ways to do this. Yes, it means you have to change the way you've been living your life. Establishing nervous system safety practices that signal to your body it's okay to heal, it's safe to heal. There's a lot of ways we can do this. I personally find that if you can begin to allow yourself to be in nature, that is a great start. And not just like go in nature to check it off the list because Lydia said I need to go and get my sun. Like when you're in the sun, like just pause, and feel the sun on your face and let it fill you with joy, gratitude, whatever feelings, and just take a minute. Forget like everything else. And if you have intrusive thoughts, get out there and hum. Hum your little mouth off, right? Humming will help stop those intrusive thoughts. It'll give your vagus nerve a chance to put you into parasympathetic. Okay, so there's a tip for you. So go out in the sun every morning and hum. It's probably why they do the Om thing in yoga practice, right? Om. They're like, I don't know, maybe that's a piece of it, right? Okay, so we're all connecting with natural sources of voltage through sunlight, through skin to earth contact. So guys, I'm a barefoot person. I love my grounding in my feet. Get your feet in the ground. Touch something natural with your skin. Hug a tree. Yes, do it. Whatever it is, whatever works for you, just touch the earth. Go wade in a creek. These are basic things. Find ways to incorporate that on the regular. You will begin to restore your voltage through these practices. And then it's really kind of important when we do slow down and we kind of feel that difference. You can start to like actually reflect. And I'm a journaler. I don't know if you guys do. It's great practice. It also kind of encourages you to slow down. But to understand your unique stress responses, I think I did a podcast on this one for you with like a whole checklist of things. But, you want to understand how your stress responses are. Like, pay attention to that, right? Usually my clients tell me one of the first things they say is I'm responding to stress better. I'm like, okay, well, how? Like, how do you know this? Like, what exactly is different for you? And usually it's like a family member is telling them. And that's important. Like, take note of that. Write that down because this has been impacting your mineral utilization. This has been impacting you in a major way. Take note. Write it down. Notice that you've shifted. And so like when you find yourself maybe like busy again and depleting and that pattern coming back in, you're not necessarily regressing. It's just like a signal to you. Hey, something new is stressing me out again. Like, let me, kind of make some choices here, make some differences here in my life. Okay. And then this whole, being present, like, we really don't know how to do this in our culture, you guys. We really aren't very good at this. So whatever ways you can practice presence. One that I think would be so good for all of us is just when you sit down to eat a meal, before you pick the fork up and start shoveling, pause, have some kind of little ritual. I don't care what it is. You get to decide. Like maybe you pause and you sit at the table and you wait for everyone else to sit down too, which also no one does anymore. And maybe say a little something. Maybe you say a prayer. Maybe you share a little gratitude, whatever it is. And that's a good one to do. That's a good one for all of us. A lot of times people are rushing through their meals to get onto the more important stuff that they have to do. But guys, let me tell you, there's nothing more important than eating in a relaxed state and appreciating and being present with the ones you love over a meal. We have our work cut out for this one, for us on this one, guys. I think, like our modern lifestyles are not set up for restoration. We have got to acknowledge this. And we're constantly outputting with little input back to us, which drains our reserves just as quickly as we're building them, trying to build them back up. It's like trying to fill a bathtub while the drain is open. This is like the modern epidemic issue. Okay. So it's like, I'm going to go back and kind of reframe why the depletion is so prevalent and remind us and say a few new things. So in case you're new here, our modern soils here in the United States are dramatically depleted compared to even just 50 years ago, based on how we're growing with the large scale farming and the pesticides and what we're doing to the soil, right? And this is where most people are depending on getting their food from. And there's studies swirling around showing that the fruits and vegetables have lost up to 40% or more of their mineral content since the 1950s. So even if you think you're eating like some perfect organic diet, chances are you're not getting the mineral density, maybe your grandparents or your parents or your great-grandparents were getting. And even then, it wasn't as optimal as like what our ancestors would have had in the past, way prior to the Industrial Revolution. Why? Because they were living more connected to nature and so much more was different then. So what happens in nature during spring? Plants are putting down roots. They're beginning their most crucial growth phase. And if the soil is lacking in anything, including the minerals, the plants become vulnerable to environmental stressors, pests, diseases, and they can't develop proper immune systems or resilience. And the same is happening in our bodies. So just as a seedling needs that mineral, microbe-rich soil to establish strong roots and resistance to environmental challenges, that's what our bodies need. And they need mineral sufficiency to withstand the stresses of modern life. And when a plant grows in depleted soil, it might still grow, but it will be weaker and more susceptible to disease and ultimately produce less nutritious food. Dan Kittredge is going to come on and talk about this in greater depth with us in a future episode. I cannot wait for that one. So similarly, we might still function in a mineral depleted state, but some people call this like that functional freeze state, right? Like I'm just giving you some kind of ways to look at this, but we can function in a mineral depleted state, but we're much more vulnerable, and we're less resilient and we're unable to truly thrive. Now, secondly, our stress levels are unprecedented, right? Every time you experience stress, whether it's work deadlines, social media notifications, environmental toxins, your body's using minerals to respond, right? So this chronic stress, I know we're all tired of hearing about it, but it's just, it's unfortunate. But it does create this chronic mineral depletion, right? Or imbalance. It's like a garden constantly battling, like, I don't know, extreme weather conditions, trying to grow in like dirt versus soil, right? Um, like it's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to grow food in incredibly depleted soil. Like the resources have been exhausted out of this, and it's more like dirt than true soil. And when I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to at some point do a video on this because I don't think people know what healthy soil even looks like, most people. Anyways, you get the point. And third, I want to reiterate many health trends are worsening our mineral status. Okay. I was in a experience recently around people and like all the things that they were talking about. I was like, oh man, oh boy. Juice cleanses. Let's think of some extreme exercise. Like I'm going to go do this hot yoga. And I'm not against hot yoga. I just think like, people are doing things without the understanding of how they're depleting them and not repleting, right? Like I've talked about the carnivore diet. I have big issues with that one. Um, what else? There's so many, there's just so many trends people are still trying to latch onto and like as like this attempt to heal, right? Like this, like looking for an answer. I'm going to try this thing. This is what I'm trying to take us away from this mindset, right? Because it's not rebuilding us. None of it is rebuilding us. It's like a stab at trying to do something to quickly recoup us a bit, right? So I see all of these things still going on and, never truly restoring people's mineral reserves. And I don't know, maybe an analogy would be like trying to over fertilize a garden, right? Like you are like, oh, my garden's not, healthy enough. Let me fertilize it. Like, but you're picking like one thing, kind of like we did with NPK, right? In the main agriculture industry. So you're over fertilizing a garden with like 1, 2, 3 nutrients while ignoring the complex balance that's needed for true soil health. And we're doing this in our bodies, right? We're doing this constantly. And then finally, of course, the medications, right? Like the medications, are just, doing all kinds of things in our system, like from antacids to diuretics to birth control. We could go on and on. Like this could take forever to cover. But the bottom line is they all impact our mineral absorption, and none of them are tested safe for the microbiome. And there's a beautiful piece of our microbiome that helps us with that absorption and utilization, right? So this just creates another layer of challenge in rebuilding our foundations. Okay. So I want to talk about the seasonal impact on minerals. What's particularly relevant right now is how seasonal transitions are going to affect your mineral needs. So as we move from winter to spring, several key shifts happen. Your metabolism will change. It should speed up a little bit, even if it's slow and it's still a little slow, but not as slow. It's going to speed up a little, right? You're going to notice a shift. So this requires more mineral cofactors for the enzymatic reactions that are needed to help our metabolism when it speeds up. Then, we're going to have this initiation into more detoxification processes in our system due to the weather change, right? Due to the circadian biology piece, right? And, these are dependent on adequate mineral reserves as well. Our nervous system is going to begin to recalibrate to the longer daylight hours. So we may use up more of our minerals that are needed for our nervous system in that process. Your immune system undergoes a natural shift as, everything is changing in the environment around us. Like you'll think of like how a lot more people suddenly have this response to all the pollens and all the things, right? So we have the seasonal allergy piece, but that's really a response to all the change environmentally, right? So we need good mineral reserves to modulate inflammation and have a proper immune response. And so just look around at what happens in nature during this time. Plants are rapidly taking up minerals from the soil to support their new growth. They're establishing their foundations for the entire growing season. And if they can't access what they need now, their entire life cycle is compromised. And the same is true for us. The seasonal transition's a critical time to ensure we're supporting our mineral foundation. So if we ignore this, and we push forward with depleted reserves, we will struggle through the coming seasons. I'm not just talking about spring. This sets us up for the next entire cycle. Just like a plant that never established, strong, healthy roots in the spring. So these seasonal shifts, we can call them demands if you want to, a lot of times are why a lot of people are not feeling their best. Maybe they're feeling depleted rather than energized. Maybe they're getting some kind of spring sickness. I talked a little bit about spring crud 2 episodes ago, just to be simple, but that's a lot of how people feel. They feel like crud, right? But we should be feeling energized in early spring. So, the body is always trying to attempt all of these natural transitions with whatever reserves we have. And so we really want to make sure we have what we need. It's like trying to, I don't know, run a marathon in the spring when you've been sedentary all winter, right? It's technically possible, but it's definitely not going to be an optimal experience. All right. Well, what I am offering moving forward, because this understanding is completely transformed how I work with clients, which is why I'm excited. I'm going to share some changes just so you're aware that I'm making them to better support people. I've been seeing certain patterns emerge collectively in the work that I'm doing with clients, and I'm using the HTMA, the hair tissue mineral analysis. And in the results, like honestly, over the decade I've been doing this, it's been interesting to observe how we've all shifted. So from when I started to now, I'm seeing some interesting things, as well as just, the health journeys of the people that have come to work with me. I'm just noticing these patterns. So in response to what I'm witnessing, I am revamping my hair tissue mineral analysis client work, primarily with the just like I have an HTMA offer now, and it comes with a consultation online program, but I'm changing it up a little bit to have a new package that provides more comprehensive support and updated course content to match what I'm witnessing and observing. Okay, so and then this spring, I'm also launching a dedicated Mineral Foundations course that will teach you how to understand your body's needs from the ground up. And this is just going to cover the basics. And I've designed this to help you move beyond the cycle of quick fixes and into true health sovereignty. So, what makes this approach different is that it honors both aspects of spring energy, right? Like that courage to begin something new and the patience to nurture it properly. I've structured these offerings to provide this extra support that I see is needed, especially in the, kind of more vulnerable early stages of change, while mentoring you with the knowledge to eventually, guide your own healing journey. So as we move into this season of renewal, I want to invite everyone to consider where you might need to embrace a beginner's mindset in your health journey. Where might you benefit from slowing down in your life to build a stronger foundation? What seeds of change are you ready to plant that you'll actually commit to nurturing patiently? Remember that true transformation in nature and in ourselves happens through consistent care over time. And I often see this, like the most beautiful gardens, they took time to curate and they didn't bloom overnight. Now, going back for a minute to the kind of ancient wisdom for modern healing, right? Like, and just kind of looking at the historical and cross-cultural context of spring renewal. When we look at how different cultures throughout history have honored the spring transition, we can find remarkable wisdom that's still relevant to us today. So, for example, in traditional Chinese medicine, spring is associated with the liver and gallbladder, which I covered in some past episodes. And these are organs responsible for detoxification, for planning, for vision. And they understood that this season requires specific support to help the body process and release what's no longer needed. Native American traditions often included specific cleansing ceremonies during spring using local herbs that naturally appear during the season, which is to me like this beautiful acknowledgement that nature provides exactly what we need when we need it. Many tribes would prepare special mineral rich broths from bones and early spring greens to replenish their bodies after winter, which is what I talked about in 2 episodes ago. And I think I shared a recipe for you guys. And then in European folk tradition, spring was a time for gathering specific mineral rich herbs like nettle, dandelion, cleavers, right? Plants that naturally concentrate minerals from the soil and help the body gently detoxify. And these were not random practices, they were observations because they were so connected to nature. And they were passed down through generations about what the body needs during this transition. Now, I'm going to continue with my foraging forays and all the knowledge that I've gained from that in the upcoming spring episodes. So get ready for that. I'm super excited. I cannot wait to get back out there and hang out with the plants, and I'm going to share what I can along the way. So the contrast with our modern approaches, right? Like if we look at the ancestral practices, what strikes me differently is they are more gentle, like right they have a more rhythmic approach to spring renewal. There was no concept of like hurry up and heal or anything harsh or aggressive or hurry up, we need a detox or cleanse you or take all these things to get all these metals out. Like everyone's talking about like, I need to do some cilantro and to chelate my metals. And I'm like, no, that's a marketing thing, right? Like we have to go back and understand these things deeply. So we're not duped into these things anymore, right? So to do that, we have got to understand the traditional ways, the nature piece, right? Instead, what they would have done was allow this gradual awakening and then just naturally support the body's processes. They understood that the spring renewal isn't a weekend cleanse or a 30-day challenge, right? Like it's a process of reawakening that follows the pace of nature itself. They didn't expect the snow to melt overnight, and they didn't expect their bodies to transform instantly either. And this stands in stark contrast to our modern rushed healing paradigms, where we expect immediate results and often force our bodies into extreme protocols. Guys, because of this, we've lost the patience, we've lost the wisdom of working with natural cycles. And this is where I think the whole ceremony and community piece comes in, because it's another missing element, right, from our modern approach, which was a really big piece to all these seasonal transitions for us. So virtually every traditional culture marked the spring equinox with community gatherings, specific foods, rituals that acknowledged this powerful shift. And they weren't like these ridiculous things. Like, I don't know, they weren't superstitious. They really just served to connect people to the earth's rhythms and to each other. And they created a collective understanding that we're part of something larger than ourselves, which is profoundly regulating for our nervous system, profoundly nourishing, I should say. I kind of want to get away from nervous system regulation and dysregulation, by the way. So help me remember that. It's just it's just not quite right. Now, when we approach healing in isolation, constantly checking our progress against arbitrary metrics, we're missing the profound medicine of shared experience and collective wisdom. Our ancestors knew that healing happens in community, in relationship with both people and place and nature. So the wisdom that we can reclaim from this, right? Like we don't have to go adopt some, like, I don't know, some ancient religious practice per se to benefit from this wisdom. We can translate it and weave it into our modern life. So we can, and that's what I'm trying to do here on the podcast, is to teach this as we move through the year. So we can honor the gradual nature of true renewal, right? We can work with plants. We can work with foods that naturally emerge each season, particularly now in spring, which I covered in my last episode and some of my past episodes. And we can each create simple rituals that connect us to the changing season. Maybe we do have, some friends and celebrate the solstice in some way. Maybe we do have a meal with our family and talk about this. Maybe, there's a lot of ways you can do this. And then the way we approach detoxification can be totally more natural. It can be more of like a gentle process, very supported, nothing rushed or panicked, or I have to get this bad thing out of me. I'm afraid of parasites. Oh no. It can be very grounded and rooted in our natural way of being, right? Like that we could align with that, right? So, and then, I really think there's something to be said, and this is what I think I find every time I speak with a client, they just want to tell me everything that's going on. And sometimes it feels like they don't have anyone to talk to in their life. Like maybe people are living in a situation where their partner or their family isn't on board yet with this healing journey that they're on, and they feel like they're struggling alone. And so when they come and talk to me, it's just like they want to tell me everything, which is great. I love it. I'm happy to listen. But being able to share our healing journey with each other, especially the people who are in our lives, like close to us, is huge, right? Like we don't need to struggle alone. So this ancestral wisdom to me can remind us that our bodies, they're not machines to be hacked. The whole biohacking world, or to be forced into compliance, right? Like they're living systems. They respond to the same rhythms that govern all of nature. And when we align with these rhythms, rather than fighting against them, healing becomes not just possible, but totally inevitable. So, if you're wondering about specific steps to implement the spring renewal approach, again, I want to point to past episodes that I've already done, particularly the last two. I provided some guidance in those. So check out Spring Clean Your Health, transitioning from winter to spring. I'm going to walk you through some practicals in there and link you back to two previous episodes around, spring cleaning your health naturally and spring detox naturally. And then in my last episode, I delved deeply into vitamin E, but I covered it in a very thorough manner, because I see the traditional practices we would have done really incorporated it richly. And it's really a seasonal key to help us with cellular repair so that the mineral work we are doing actually, works well too, right? Like it's all about the cells, right? So definitely check those out if you haven't yet. The vitamin E one was pretty deep and lengthy. So, these should give you more concrete actions to take while you're considering the deeper foundations I'm chatting about. And, they're just really designed to work hand in hand with, all my observations and understanding about the mineral work that I do. So, you should be able to pull some immediate steps out as well as like start to, you know, come up with a long-term strategy. So as I mentioned, having reflected on how I can better serve people on their health journey, because I really see the widespread need for the mineral support, um, through the work that I do in our depleted world, again, like I said, I wanted to revamp some things. So one of the key things is I've observed that many people need far more guidance than they initially realize, especially in the beginning stages of rebuilding their health foundations, coming out of this whole allopathic model, symptom placation, right? It's like learning any new skill. We don't know what we don't know until we're in the process. So the first offering I'm excited to share is my Mineral Foundations mini course. This is specifically designed for those of you who know you need to address your health, but are feeling overwhelmed just getting through your days. Maybe you're a mom juggling multiple responsibilities, someone working long hours just to stay afloat, or dealing with fatigue that makes even basic self-care feel impossible. This is something I wish I had forever ago. And if I actually listened and implemented, holy moly, my life could have been so much different. So this course is, my solution to offering that safety, that foundational support before you ever need to work with me directly. You can get a lot out of this. Um, or like a lot of people are just like on the fence of delving into this whole like mineral balancing world, right? Like, which is the HTMA work, really helping to reset your whole body's systems. And what makes this course that I'm putting out different is I I wanted to have more of a maternal nurturing approach. Just as we wouldn't expect an infant to run before crawling, this course is going to help you establish those critical first steps in a supportive, gentle way. And it's all about like building that bottom layer. I talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think, in my last episode. Um, but it's just about building that bottom layer for your body, addressing that very foundational needs that make all the other healing that you're going to continue to want to do on, the things you're going to want to stack on top of it. That's going to make it all possible. It's kind of like, a lot of us, we skip ahead, right? Like it's like trying to learn the alphabet before you you need to learn, I'm sorry. You need to learn the alphabet before you can write poetry, right? Like we get that. So we need these basics. We just need them firmly in place before we can advance. And I have not met a single person, even practitioners, and I've worked with a lot of practitioners who who have the foundations for mineral balancing in place. They just don't. There's a lot of confusion out there. There's a lot of chaos out in the world. We're all just trying to do our best. But I haven't met a single person with this established. And then they're trying to build on top of it too quickly. And then they're like wondering why it's not working. So that's what this course is all about, to provide you simple, implementable steps that respect your current capacity while gradually building your resilience. So honestly, you guys, I'm going to have pre-registration open this week. Details are coming. I'm working my booty off to make it happen. And I've made it a pay what you can option starting at just $33. And I wanted this to be accessible as, just like buying a good book, right? That way anyone could invest in to begin this journey. So you'll have the option to pay more if you're able to, but no pressure. But the starting price is intentionally low because I believe everyone deserves access to these foundational health principles. So this approach is going to allow people to step into this work gradually, experience, my teaching style and approach before, maybe you've thought you wanted to work with me. Maybe you haven't. It's fine. But maybe you have, and, you're just not sure. This will give you an opportunity to see what it's like, right? I've personally found that having this kind of entry point can help some people feel much safer when beginning health work, right? And you can just get a feel for whether it resonates with you. And it's really going to be up to you to actually do the implementation, right? Before making a bigger commitment. Now, with my enhanced HTMA support, I'm going to revamp this because the way that I've been doing it, excuse me, is I'm seeing that people need far more support. That's the bottom line. And I'm always like reassessing, like, how can I do that? How can I provide that? And how can I make it simple? So that's what I'm trying to do here. Include some follow-up check-in sessions to help you navigate the inevitable questions that everyone has, make the adjustments. It's better to do it this way than to throw everything at you, like so much to do, right? Like we can give you a good foundation and then, make the tweaks along the way. Sometimes we have to make adjustments, so we might as well build that into the support, right? I'm going to take a sip of water. All right, so that really makes a big difference, I think, between having just a ton of information and actually being able to apply it effectively in your life. You will have questions. You will have conditioning. You will have obstacles. You will feel like you're sabotaging yourself. You will feel like you're getting something and maybe you're not getting something. It's going to be bumpy. Excuse me. So, I want to support people through that more deeply. Now, I also had built this client course that I built, I think it was 2018. I have learned a lot along the way. I have observed a lot of patterns over the years, working with hundreds and hundreds of people. And so it just is time for a refresh. And so the new content that I'm going to incorporate in the course, which by the way, isn't like some course you have to complete. It's really there for support. People are often wanting to learn anyway. They're going all over the interwebs, searching things and overwhelming themselves. So I figured I would create, a course that helps take them through this process. And the new content is going to put a special emphasis on, establishing greater safety in your nervous system, practical ways to embody stability, because without that, even the best mineral protocol isn't going to yield optimal results. So, this expanded support structure honors what I know to be true. Real transformation doesn't happen in isolation or in a single session. It happens through consistent, informed action with the right support along the way. So I want to be transparent that, this enhanced way I'm going to recreate my HTMA services is going to come with a price adjustment to reflect the additional support and value included. So the official change will happen at the end of spring, when the updated course portion is officially available. So I just wanted to announce that to people. I'd like to tell these things in advance so people have time to adapt. But if you've been considering working with me through the HTMA work that I do, it's possible if this might be a good time to secure the current pricing and structure. Zero pressure at all. I'm just mentioning it. And anyone who signs up before the change can still access additional support on an as needed basis. You can book extra sessions with me if you need to. And so, the best way to stay informed about all these things that I'm doing, guys, is to sign up for my newsletter, which is in the show notes below. That's where I, you know, weekly touch base with any new resources I've created, such as the podcast, um, any old things that I think I need to remind people about. It's where I announce any new offerings that I have. Just giving my community advance notice before any of the major changes. So I only send out usually 2 newsletters a week, sometimes only 1 if life gets busy, and usually no more than 3 if there's a lot going on. So just so you know what to expect if you sign up for my newsletter. And, that's where I just, I'm sharing all these resources in one place. It's hard to do it on social media. It's hard to do it in the podcast. You might miss it. All right. So anyways, the Mineral Foundations course is just like for those who are just beginning. And the enhanced HTMA packages for those ready to take on like a deeper dive in there, see their, body chemistry, what's going on, and get that proper support through, the implementation. It's not about getting data. It's like really, really goes way deeper. So anyways, just wanted to share that a little bit more thoroughly. I don't normally take the time to do this in podcast episodes, but because it's new and changing, I wanted to give you some backdrop there as to what is going on. And it is spring after all. New things are coming. I am in creation mode. So if you want to, tackle your health this spring with this, enthusiastic energy, you want to have the wisdom to build it properly from the ground up, and you want support, definitely reach out. You can find out how to work with me now with the current offerings that I have in the show notes, on my website. And my new Mineral Foundations course will be announced very soon as well. So thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you. I hope you have a beautiful spring renewal. And, I think beautiful growth awaits all of us, especially when we are learning to align ourselves more with nature's wisdom. So until next time, stay wild and well.